Hello, hello, hello there, HARP family. Welcome back. It's another Let's HARP About It with your host. I am Winnie O. Yes, y'all know me. And as usual, fam, listen, Dr. Singh is back with us, okay? And this week, as the reminder told y'all, what are we talking about? The dehumanization of people of color. Now, this is going to be not only a heavy topic, but it's also going to be very informative, right? So this is the kind of information you're interested in, or you're just trying to learn more about these type of social factors, intersectionality, and how it affects, how different folks are treated in various workplaces, right? Because let's be honest, abuse of power, access to resources, right? All those things happen, no matter what sector you find yourself in. So I would like to welcome my guest, my co-host for today, Dr. Anju Singh. Let's see. Yeah, here we are. Yes. I mean, I was excited for this. I was like, I can't wait. Because also, people, I am finding out with you guys. So that's why, like, my excitement is just as much as you. So thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for joining me yet again. I appreciate you for your time. And, for those who may not know you, please reintroduce yourself and that we can get into the conversation.
Hey, thank you again, Winnie, for having me here. It's my pleasure. Thank you for creating this platform and thank you for having this conversation. I hope people listening find it very informative because that's our main purpose. Is get information out there, get facts out there so people can make independent, informed, educated decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Because education is power. Making informed, educated decisions are powerful.
Right, because last last session, what we're talking about is what? Informed consent. Understanding how the power of being able to provide consent from a very informed perspective. And this week, we're helping you do just that, especially, in taking charge of your own health or advocating for the next person, if you happen to be in that position to do so. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna throw it back to you because listen, you're the subject matter expert here, and I'm just excited to hear what you got to say.
Thank you. Thank you for your generous words. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I won't call myself an expert. Yes, I have a medical degree. I'm trained as an eye surgeon. I have a PhD in molecular medicine. So, and I've done my master's in health administration. So yes, I do have a little more knowledge and background in this area, but I will by no stretch of imagination call myself an expert. I'm just here to share whatever knowledge I have. Of course, there are experts in every field.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'll be honest with you, this topic of dehumanization of people of color, I don't even know where to begin because it's like you start digging into trying to get to the root of it. The deeper you dig, the deeper it keeps going. It's like, how does it begin? Where does it begin? It's almost like it began from the beginning of time kind of a thing. So first of all, let's start with how do we define healthcare or equitable healthcare, right? Like health and the equities, how are they defined? So for example, the Institute of Medicine, it defines it as providing care to everyone that does not vary in its quality because of personal characteristics like gender, ethnicity, geography, socioeconomic status. So everyone should get equal quality of care, irrespective of their demographics and their characteristics. Right? Healthcare equity, that's how healthcare equity is defined, that everyone gets a fair chance to get good quality of care. Irrespective of their, that is how Institute of Medicine defines healthcare equity. And you can have definitions. Go to any site. You go to the American Public Health Association site. They define health equity as everyone having the opportunity to attain their highest level of health.
Okay. I think that's less murky, especially like, because I know, because the other one to me sounded closer to like the equality, like just treat everybody the same. But I'm like, but no.
No.
Right? You don't want to treat everybody the same. Yeah.
Right. Everyone should get equal quality of healthcare.
Yeah. Thank you.
Quality. And the quality is going to vary depending on your characteristics.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So CDC, it states that health equity is achieved when every person has the opportunity to attain his or her full health potential, and that no one is at a disadvantage from achieving this potential because of social position or other socially determined circumstances. That is health equity.
I like that.
Do we have health equity in America?
I mean, family, COVID just showed us we do not.
And COVID is not the only.
And that's just one thing. Yes, I'm glad. Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's just one thing that I think it's just more pronounced, in the context of COVID. But even before that, right? Like, if anything, I would say it was the underlying cofactors that really got magnified that were already there. So no, I guess the direct answer is no. We traditionally don't.
Right. So how and when so my master's thesis, my master's dissertation, when I did my master's in health administration here from Penn State, was a critical comparative analysis of healthcare system in the US compared to 33 other OECD countries. OECD stands for, I think, Overseas Economical and Socially Developed. So about 33 countries came together and they shared this information to compare. Okay, who's doing what right? Who's doing something better? So we learned from each other and we help each other get better.
Correct.
Right? So they do this in science and technology and engineering and agriculture and everything. So I looked at the health side of it.
Correct.
And in my dissertation, what I looked at was, first of all, was healthcare expense. United States healthcare expense is significantly higher than any other country. Like, not just a little bit more expensive. It's like orders of magnitude more expensive.
Right?
And one can rationalize and justify that healthcare in America is expensive because we have better quality of care, or we have better science and technology and equipment and all that stuff. So then that's the next step. That's what I looked into.
Lies from hell, but okay.
So number one, I looked at coverage. Do we provide more coverage to our population than these other 33 countries? And the answer is no. Most of these countries, Canada, all of Europe, many countries, 100% of their population is covered. They have at least basic health care.
And if anything, better accessibility to even the specialists. Because there was a time there where I was like, I refuse to have a child in America. Because I was just like, it was like way too damn expensive. I was like, I would rather go birth overseas if I had the chance.
Right. So America was amongst the bottom. Out of those 33 countries, America was about at the bottom. When I did my dissertation, about 12% of Americans did not have access to healthcare, like did not have health insurance, period, like no healthcare. So it was at the bottom. So how do you rationalize being the most expensive healthcare when 12% of your population doesn't even have access to healthcare? That was one factor. Second factor was the availability and utilization of high-tech equipment.
Yes.
I looked at the expensive equipments like CT scans, MRIs. Our availability was equal, if not lesser than the other. So our availability was not higher. Our utilization was not higher.
Yeah, right. Because
that does not justify our expense at all.
Exactly.
So we're not covering all the people. We're not providing more or better use of our high-tech equipment.
Correct. Right? Yeah.
So those factors out. Then coming to quality and outcomes, looking at longevity, looking at infant mortality rate, looking at youth death rate, looking at cancer, diabetes, stroke, looking at all other health outcomes.
Yeah.
We are not good in a single outcome. Not a single outcome. Some of them we're at the bottom of the list. Not even second or third or fourth.
Wow.
We are literally down to the bottom 2, 3, 4, or 5 compared to these 33 countries. So now put these pieces together and now tell me, how do we explain this expensive, ridiculously expensive healthcare system when we're not providing care to all our population. We're not providing more of the equipment. We're not utilizing the equipment any better, and we're not good in our health outcomes. So this is overall. This is not even divided by demographics and characteristics. This is just the entire United States of America, right? So right there and then we know we're dealing with a hot mess. right?
Yeah.
So then now we come to racial disparities.
Mm.
What all are the reasons for racial disparities? And it's like almost every aspect of life when it comes to poverty, a lack of access,
Yes.
education, unemployment, income instability. Even the ones who are employed don't have benefits,
Correct.
don't have a stable income, so they can't have regular checkups done. Housing, food insecurity, nutrition, environmental hazards.
Yes.
Lead poisoning, we've seen through what happened in Flint, but
Flint,
it's a problem
right.
all over the US.
Exactly.
News.
Thank you.
Flint hit the news because they were literally getting sewage water in their faucets.
Yeah.
They were that water that they were getting in their faucets was biohazardous.
And for me, like, I was like, things clearly had to have been just let go by the wayside for so long for it to get that badly. Because that doesn't happen. It has not happened
It got
overnight.
bad literally by the flip of a switch.
Wow.
It got bad that fast because they changed their water supply from the Michigan Lake to their river to save money. And the river, they were getting dirty water. It was literally sewage water. And that chemical water was corroding all the lead inside the pipes, and they were having lead. And lead is poisonous. It causes brain damage, especially to growing children.
Thank you. And that's the thing where I'm like, because I approach this from that side of things, right? From more of like the engineering, stormwater pollution, like contaminated water. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, you can't say that like either that was their choice because, you know, they had the option to go versus, the original source versus changing this. I was like, these are things you have to consider, not only on a cost wise, right? Because obviously in that case, they decided to go with a lower cost. Cost was the prioritizing factor, you know? And for me personally, I'm glad somebody got held responsible for it. People got held responsible for it. But even that, to me, it's not even like coming anywhere close to meeting like a fair like justice in this process. Like to me, I'm like,
I mean, the level of things that went wrong. Number one, the fact that they switched was wrong.
mm-hmm.
Then when they started noticing that the car industry, their parts started corroding.
That part.
They switched the car industries back to the Michigan Lake while the population continued to get sewage water. That tells you their priorities, that car parts are more valuable to them than human life.
Of course, right? Because, and that's the thing, when people hear, oh, it's safe, because somebody had to approve that permit. Let's be honest. From a permitting standpoint, from a potable water like dispenser, like, you know, person, like whether it's your water authority, your drinking water authority, your provider, somebody has to approve those permits for operation.
It was so corrupt, and
right?
We only I think managed to scratch the surface of that corruption. So yes, finally they were kind of sort of held accountable. I think about 15 people were held accountable. They got a decent amount of money to replace all the infrastructure, but the last I read, they have not met their deadlines.
Exactly.
They have replaced limited number of pipelines, and they test waters only from those pipelines.
Exactly, and that's yes. And that sounds like context matters, right? Even because even the way we collect data, right? We need the context. We need to provide the context in which we are collecting the data. And especially, as you're saying, if you're only sampling from those pipes, of course you can be like, we have 100%, you know, it's good, it's what we expected.
Exactly.
But then what was the outreach that you were supposed to actually handle? Like, who were the demographics that you were supposed to really help altogether? If they're not all being addressed, then you've not finished doing your job.
Right. And I know there's a program in Harrisburg going on with regard to lead and water. So we must bring that program to the forefront. It's very, very important.
Correct.
Lead damages the brain of growing children. It slows down their growth. It affects their intellectual ability.
Yes. Yes.
Not only that, but lead poisoning has also been associated with violent behavior when they grow up.
Right?
And now who is being exposed to lead? We've come to know about flint and the water pipes as a source of lead poisoning, but historically, lead poisoning was from the paints in our
From the
walls.
paints, yeah.
Right. And when we found out in about 1975 or 1977, it became illegal to use those paints. So
Yeah.
all the rich people got their houses repainted or whatever and got rid of the lead paint. But it was the socioeconomically deprived people who didn't have that opportunity. So till today, in the inner cities and the less economically developed areas, you've still got houses that have lead in their paint. Guess who lives in those houses?
Predominantly Black and brown people and immigrants, whoever they come from.
Exactly. So they continue to be at risk of lead poisoning. They continue to have their children not develop normally and have a higher risk of violent behaviors as crime. So it continues to feed that stereotype, which Watson and Crick started. Watson and Crick, the Nobel Prize winners, were the ones who said the African Americans are lesser intelligent species.
You hear that, people?
They were stripped of their title, and I can share that link with you. As I said, depending on what topic we put it on, I'll share that link with you.
Yeah. And in fact, I also like the fact that you highlighted, to me, a very key thing where, especially when you talk about Flint, Michigan, and even the way they're testing. And to me, it highlights this issue of how do we determine what's safe, right? Because it is the government that allowed not only the original switch from the lake to the river, number one, right? Because somebody must have said, oh, it's safe enough. It's safe enough for those people. It was safe enough, right? And even when it came to like the testing and all that stuff for the water, right, that's still polluted, right? Somebody's telling those folks that like, oh yeah, it's safe enough. And at the end of the day, it's not really like what you're showing us that it's not about actually being safe. It's about the risk mitigation, because they were willing to make swift changes for the vehicular industry, but not for humans. So that shows about, what really is your priority? Like, what do you really care? What do you value? And I'll actually bring up this other link that you just sent me. Would you like for me to share it?
Sure, go ahead. Share that link, and we'll put that link in the chat and stuff so people can visit them and read more in depth about it, right?
Correct.
And this is the link that shares that Watson and Crick they lost their honorary titles over their racist comments. All right, which this lead poisoning and data also brings me to another reason why we see inequity and disparities in a healthcare system, especially in the populations of people of color. And that is because of the distrust in the healthcare system.
Okay, so, come on now.
We talked about the lead, but the real distrust historically stems from much earlier. Right? And let's talk about historically, let's go back to the Tuskegee Trials.
Yes.
What happened in the Tuskegee Trials, and I can share that link here too to people who want to read more about it, but this happened between 1912 and 1972, where about 600 African-American people 600 African-American people were recruited into this study, of which about 399 had syphilis. 201 did not have syphilis. Now, at that time, penicillin had been found to treat syphilis. People were denied treatment because the people doing the study wanted to see the natural course of the disease throughout its life. In its pure, unadulterated manner, like pure science.
Right? But
only on the African-American people. The other people were, a similar study prior to this had been going on in England, but they had to change their study and they had to start treating their patients once they realized that penicillin was helpful.
Wow.
So they were no longer getting the pure picture of the disease, the unadulterated. And that's what these scientists in Tuskegee were trying to do, is we want to see the natural course of the whole disease over the lifetime of a person, right? So out of these people, so their whole goal was basically to see what happens to patients who are not treated.
Yeah.
And patients were just given placebos like aspirin and mineral supplements and stuff.
Without their consent, though.
Without their consent, yes. So about by 1972, when this study was ultimately terminated, about 128 of these patients had died.
Wow.
right? And they had passed this on to their children. So there were children being born with congenital syphilis. So ultimately, yes, the study was shut down, and there was a lawsuit. And but again, the people were never really indicted. They were never convicted. They were never convicted.
Because who sanctioned this study again?
It was a U.S. government, right? So in 1973, the government had a congressional hearing. There was a class action lawsuit, which was settled out of court with the federal government. And then, some settlement was given to these patients, but the people who conducted the study were never convicted. They were sued for criminal misconduct, but they were not convicted. So ever since then, because of these experiences, Tuskegee trial, Nuremberg trials, is why we now have the IRB, Institutional Review Board. But here's the kicker. Now you can't do it in the US, so now they go outside.
Oh, say it.
Now they go outside and do these studies. So there was a Guatemala study. And some of the doctors who took part in the Guatemala study were the ones who were participating in the Tuskegee trials in the later years. So they couldn't do it here, so they went out of the country and they did it there. There they went and injected people with syphilis.
Come on now. Wow.
And Hillary Clinton had to finally apologize to them. Right? So when historically we've seen African-American people have been used as guinea pigs, and not informed consent.
Yes.
That's why there's that huge distrust in the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Which is a double whammy, which is now, again, because of that, a lot of African-American people don't want to get the vaccine because they don't trust the vaccine, but it's hurting them. So now they're denying themselves the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah, because but to me, even right, and that's the thing that I grapple with, where I recognize that these hesitations are absolutely valid. They're absolutely validated as well, right?
Oh, definitely.
It's very different. I mean, if that's what you've been shown time and time again, I mean, and just even beyond, even outside the medical industry, if in every area of your existence, you're constantly being shown that your life, doesn't matter, or your life is irrelevant, or your life is expendable, right? For whatever reason.
Right.
Then you're like, okay, then if what I'm doing currently is surviving and I'm okay with it, then I guess I'll keep doing that. And you just, I'll do my best to stay out of your way, you stay out of mine.
You're right. It's a typical victim of abuse behavior.
Right?
You don't trust your abuser.
Oh, okay.
And then even if when help comes, you don't trust that help. You don't accept that help.
Thank you for connecting that for us. Right? Yes, right? Because family. People, and that's the thing, people forget, or maybe it's not that they forget, but maybe it's making that connection sometimes is not as clear. Where I'm like, you can absolutely have medical abuse. You can have workplace abuse. And workplace abuse, right, is not just about, between employees or employer-employee. I'm like, sometimes it's employee to the client, right? Whereas we have seen in these cases, where it was the professional abusing their power over somebody who they were supposed to be protecting or serving or providing aid to. And actually, let me pull up this video.
And this link that I've just shared with you, there's actually a movie about the Tuskegee Trials. It's called Miss Evers' Boys. It's a really, really nice movie. I think it's in 10 parts. And I don't know if I've watched all 10. I think I've watched most, if not all of them. It just breaks your heart watching them. Very nice young men, just full of life, wanting to just, live their own life. It's a wonderful movie. So anyone who's interested, I would really, really encourage you to watch this movie, which tells you about, so even the nurse who was involved, she was an African, here's the sad part. She was an African-American nurse.
I heard that.
And that is the whole problem, that by the time she got the information, she had already consented before she was able to give informed consent. Yes. And by the time she got the information, she was too far in to pull out, and she stayed in it kind of sort of to take care of her boys, so to speak. She was attached to the patients.
Yeah.
And that's how you find yourself. That's typical abusive victims behavior.
Yeah. To me, it was like
consent, not being given the information. By the time you get the information, you're too far in to pull yourself out.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's a trap.
She continued to be part of this trial, knowing how unethical it was.
Right, because it's almost
gut-wrenching, but so real.
Yeah, and to me, it's like it goes back to the whole do the ends justify the means, right? Where maybe that's how she rationalized it. She was rational.
She was on the verge of losing her job. Her options were when they ran out of funding, she didn't have a job.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, sometimes it also matters, you do what you need to do to put the food on the table, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So either she continued to have a job and take care of these people the best she could, and she was strung along on the hope, this will change. Soon we'll start the medication. We'll get the medication. We'll do the treatment. So she was strung along. And I think one thing she tells, and I love it because I connected it with Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb. Because in this movie, Miss Evers Boyce, she says, you know what? They tell you, just get over this hill. But when you get over this hill, there's another hill. When you get over that hill, there's another hill. And when I saw that movie and then I heard Amanda Gorman, I'm like, oh my God, how many hills do we have to climb?
Right. And my thing is, like, we still hear it even till today, where they're like, oh, just get over it. We have solutions to do. We have we have bigger fish to fry. Just let's get over it. And it was like, it's typically the person who inflicts that pain is the one you like, let's just get over it. Let's get to the penicillin. But when you think they're going to give you penicillin, like, well, we have to do this one more thing. And then once we get over it, we'll get over it and we'll get you the next one.
Yeah, and it's so sad. These gentlemen got tertiary. So there's syphilis. There's primary syphilis, secondary syphilis, tertiary syphilis. And then there's, one of its side effects is nervous tissue disorder.
Yeah.
And they show they're dancing, and suddenly in the middle of dancing, he, falls because his legs get weak.
Yeah.
So slowly their bodies just degenerate. It's just horrible. And to see that a medical professional person can do this to another human being, it's just.
I mean,
there's got to be a special place in hell for these people.
One can only hope. Because to me, it's like you're saying. See, that's the thing. You're seeing the humanity in the other person. You see them as a fellow human. I'm like, how do you do that to a fellow living entity?
Somehow we have these compartments in our mind. So when you hear of, you hear of a criminal case and somebody committed a murder.
Okay. Oh,
somebody committed a murder. So you think of the person as a criminal, right?
Yes.
And you can still understand, okay, this person committed a murder. But now that you find out that this person was actually a doctor, this person was actually someone who committed their profession. They took an oath to help cure people, to help ease their pain and suffering. And then they do this. It just makes it 10 times worse.
Exactly. I mean, and that actually reminds me of the gynecology, the one who's commonly touted as the father of modern gynecology. What's his name? The one who did the experiments on all the enslaved women. I need to pull it up soon. But yeah, it was like a similar thing where it's like it was the conditions in which he was running his experiments on these women was horrendous, and his justification was, oh, they're Black people, African people, they're savages, they don't feel as much pain, right? So
I got a link for that too.
Hey!
As recent as 2016, yes. They did a survey of first and second year medical students. Yes. Who believe that African American people, the skin is thicker, they feel less pain, they have nerve endings. Like, where is this coming from? But this is all downstream effect, starting from things like Birth of the Nation, where the African American man is portrayed as this beastly person, as a malicious, savage, barbaric human being. So that image, that stereotyping is done. And then you had people like Trump and even Hillary Clinton.
Come on now.
With the Central Park Five.
Yes.
What do they call them?
Super predators.
Super predators. So again, reinforcing that stereotype, right?
And then creating policies around that.
Right. And then Watson and Crick tell them they're the lesser intelligent people. Right. And then you have these medical doctors bringing that bias to their profession. Oh, I've had people tell me to my face. I've had a doctor tell me to my face, how come your veins are visible? You can see my veins?
Ever so lightly.
Right. Yeah. But this is, if you can see the veins through a person's skin, apparently it's called blue-blooded or something. So in the English thing, if you can see someone's veins through their skin, that means they haven't been exposed to sun. That means they're very they're people or something. Up there.
Yeah, like aristocratic,
blue-blooded or something they're called, right? So this person who saw my vein, it's a white man who's a doctor, said, how come I can see your veins? Your skin is dark and thick. I'm like, excuse me.
Wow.
I'm like, you're seeing it. It's in front of you. You're seeing it. You explain it to me.
Wow. And for me, it was, so a lot of my family are in various areas of medical, and my sister's actually a nurse. And like, when I first heard that, I was like, sis, like, what? And she's like, oh yeah, that was actually like in the books and everything, like in 2000 and something.
Right. So yeah, people don't understand that thickness of skin and color of skin are two very different characteristics. It's like, thickness of glass and color of glass. You can have thin glass that's very dark but delicate.
Yeah.
And you can have that temper-peated glass like your windshield that's thick and solid and strong but transparent.
Absolutely.
So thickness and color are on two different genes, if you will.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like these are so-called educated people who perpetuated and continue to perpetuate even today these types of false ideologies.
Right. Coming back to another reason why there's such a huge mistrust in the medical field is about Henrietta Lacks.
Yeah. Oh.
Look what they did to Henrietta Lacks.
Bam. Like, yes, like Henrietta Lacks is one of those people who I'm like, they did her so wrong. And they did her family so wrong. And like, there's no amount of reparations that you could even give to like make it right, to me, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
They couldn't be charged with a crime because when the crime occurred, there was no law saying that this is a crime.
Correct.
And I'll be honest with you, this kind of stuff really, really pushes my buttons.
I hope, yeah, and it should, right?
Right.
If you're a moral, decent human being, it should.
Right. So, for example, like attorneys, literally, what was I listening to the other day? Invariably, anywhere when you hear that there's these trials going on. The trial usually lands up spending a lot of time in the nuts and bolts, letters and wordings of things. For example, let's say Bill Clinton, he said something like, I did not have sexual intercourse with her. You see how he worded it? So technically he wasn't really lying, but he wasn't telling the truth either.
Yes, it was a technical, it was like a technical truth and a technical lie at the same time.
Right, the choice of words. Even during Trump's impeachment trials, they were sticking on literal letters and the spellings and the tone and the present tense and the past tense. Even recently, there was some trial where they were looking at words, right?
Yeah.
And it pushed my buttons, you know why? Because in my own personal experience, when my daughter was little and she had some issues, so when she was born, she was discharged from the hospital on a heart-lung monitor. And for our custody trials, we were changing our custody exchange location, and I was told Strasbourg, PA. But when the court order came out on paper, it was Strasbourg, VA.
That's
one letter mistake. And I was told, oh, it's just a typographical error.
No.
Strasbourg, PA is 1 hour away from here, or barely even 1 hour away from here.
Yes.
Strasbourg, VA is 2.5 hours away.
That's a whole different program.
And when you have a newborn baby on a heart-lung monitor, you're expecting me to make that trip? With a newborn baby, every half hour, 1 hour, you got to stop to feed them, change them, nurse them. You got to make sure the monitor is working all right, that the things, the codes don't move around. That 2.5 hour one-way drive easily turns into a 5-hour drive. And then you turn around and come back. That's a 10-hour drive for a custody exchange. Because you changed one letter in your court order, you tell me that's a mistake? And once the court order is out, it's out. There's no making amendments to it. You have to file for an appeal or whatever, have another hearing. Right?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. P and V are not. P and V are not even close together. So you can't even tell me it was a typo. I was like, if it was LA, I was like, okay.
These attorneys are very sly, very sly. And it pushed me, but I'll tell you what triggered this in me was recently an attorney, what's his name? Jeff Engel, who's running for judge. He is a registered Republican. But when you run for judge, you can run on both tickets, Democratic and Republican.
Yes.
And that's okay. And there's a reason why that is. And I understand the rationale. I respect the reasoning behind it. However, when he's knocking on doors on his campaign and talking to people, when he gets the sense the person he's talking to is Democratic and he's being asked, are you a Democratic candidate? He is responding by saying, yes, I am. Yes. That is a lie. And he needs to be called out for that.
Oh, come on.
Misrepresenting. And he and his supporters are using the fact that he's running on both the tickets, that it's okay for him to go around saying that he's Democratic. No, it's not. That's lie. That's misinformation. That's misrepresenting yourself.
What's his name again? Jeff? What's the last name?
Engel, Engle. Jeff Engel. And he needs to be called out for that because that is misinformation. That's literally what these guys do.
Right. And again, people, okay, the reason I'm clarifying, I'm going to make it very clear. This is all about allowing people, right, to make informed decision, because that's really how you give true consent. And this is why I keep talking about, like, when I'll be putting out more consent work, obviously more in the harassment, whatever, but we'll be doing various aspects of consent, because consent, I keep reminding y'all, it's not just about intimate relations. Consent is something that is woven and ought to be woven in literally every facet of our lives. Consent, we have to teach consent from a very young age. Because if we don't,
for your leaders,
literally, I was like, you are giving
to lead you. When you vote for your leaders, you're giving them consent to lead you to make certain decisions for you.
Yeah.
When you need those decisions to be made. Again, and it's okay. Now he can. Any candidate can change their party too.
Absolutely.
So if he's a registered Republican, he can register as a Democrat and run as a primarily a Democratic candidate, and that's okay too.
And we've seen that happening around these parts.
Right, a lot. I think some of our mayor candidates in Harrisburg, they are currently on Democratic. They're registered Democrats, but historically they've been registered Republican. And there's a reason why that is good. Because at the end of the day, as people, we need to get to know our candidate.
Thank you.
And to know your candidate.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's not about the party. At the end of the day, it's about the people.
Yes. Right. And that's the thing where I'm like, even when it comes to this, like, folks having to, like, run and, like, knock on doors and do all these things, I'm like, sir or ma'am, why don't they know you by now? If you're asking them to vote for you and you've only been around for like 2 seconds because you left or whatever, you did whatever you had to do, and they have no relationship with you, they have no understanding or idea of who you are, what you stand for. But then you're coming here telling them, oh, I'm like, I'll do all these things for you. I'm like, on what ground do they have to believe that that's really going to happen?
And that's the tricky part. That is very tricky. So part of that responsibility is on us as citizens as well, to do our homework.
Yes.
Get to know your candidates.
Yeah.
Talking about, and I think I posted that little link that's on the book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Again, she was an African-American patient who, for those who may not know, suffered from cervical cancer, and she was undergoing a surgical procedure, and they
Yeah.
took consent just for her surgical procedure treatment.
Yeah.
But when they did that surgical procedure, they took her sample and they started a cell line, an immortal cell line based on her cells. And they're known as the HeLa cells, the Henrietta Lacks, HeLa cells. And it's an immortal cell line. And that cell line has been used. So it's been around since 1951.
Mm-hmm.
That cell line has been used for numerous things. So
Absolutely.
back then, many people of color, Black, brown, other indigenous people, were refused treatment in most hospitals in the US.
Correct.
Johns Hopkins was one of the hospitals that did provide treatment for the Black people.
Mm-hmm.
But then Johns Hopkins is the one that took her cells and turned them into this immortal. So again, they were giving them the opportunity. The Black people were glad they were able to go to these hospitals because other hospitals refused them treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But then the hospitals that gave them access for nefarious purposes.
And again, that goes back to this systemic abuse of power.
And the reason why the colored community still does not trust the system, because this was, as recent as 1951.
Mm-hmm.
This was
clarification. I know we said colored, and I know that's a word that gets, some people, because right, depending on context where you're from, like if you're African or not American, it may mean something different. So clarification. I'll catch that.
Sorry, clarify that again for me again. I'm not
right. Like, especially in context of American persons of color, right? Right. Saying persons of color versus colored people, I know it can get a little hairy. So
sorry.
I wanted to catch that. Because I'm like, I know, like when when I was in Africa, it means something different. When you're outside of the context of America, it means something different. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. And yes, and I also know some people don't want to be called African Americans because they feel that we've been in America for generations. We've lost any connection with the continent of Africa. So they don't want to be identified as African American, but as Black American. So I understand those, and I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
So Henrietta Lacks cells were used for numerous things, and they've made billions of dollars off of her cells. Billions. They were used for development of numerous vaccines, for the polio vaccines, to do research on HIV, to do research on herpes, to do research on Parkinson's disease, including during the COVID-19 period. They have used HeLa cells for that. And that's just to name a few, right? So, and her family has not been, they were not charged criminally. Her family has not received any form of reparations or whatever. Because at the time when this crime occurred, there was no law calling it a crime.
Correct. So, and we cannot retroactively charge something as a crime. I mean, for better or for worse, depending on how you take it.
Right. And the same cells were used by a German virologist to prove that the human papillomavirus, HPV, also causes cancer. So these cells have been very key in a lot of scientific discoveries and development. And Henrietta Lacks and her family haven't seen any acknowledgement or any benefit from the billions of dollars this industry has benefited from it.
And I mean, like, and let's take the context in, like, let's add a bit more context here, right? So the research facility or the research industry, right, collects her cells, the cells of this Black woman, right? And in a time where it's controversial to even help her in the first place, right? And then you make billions. Yes, you do your research, but you make billions out of it. Provide no compensation to her, descendants on any level, right? And you find cures and all this stuff, and and at the same time, who were the people who were mostly dying from these diseases? Black and brown people. And even when we look at AIDS, let's say, right, when it was at its peak in the 80s in this area. It was Black and brown people and folks who were not of the mainstream heterosexual orientation, right? It was our LGBTQIA folks, who were, and plus Black people, it was folks who were already othered, marginalized, looked at as, oh, we tolerate them in society. Society was tolerant of them, but was not inclusive of them, and of us, really. Let me say of us. Even though I wasn't alive back then. And so to me, it's extremely problematic for me to see how society continues to. It's like, oftentimes it's like the only time you want Black and brown people involved is to get something to take.
I'll be honest with you. I literally had this conversation with someone not even 2 days ago. And this was with regard to starting a diversity and inclusion initiative, and certification program and curriculum and stuff like that. And everybody in a position of power in that program are all white people. And I'm like,
make it make sense.
Diversity and inclusion initiative, and you guys are monetizing on it, whereas in the real world, we're really not seeing any progress.
Fam, say it.
It's just become another place for you guys to monetize.
Money. It's about making money. And I keep reminding, and one of the things I've had to remind folks time and time again, I'm like, there is something about lived experience that you can't quite teach.
And that's really the hard, that's the tricky part is, and no matter how much you teach, no matter how much you teach, and no matter how much you learn,
yes,
knowledge can be weaponized depending on how you process it. So the people who protested in Charlottesville.
Okay.
One of the students that protested, he was a history major student in college. He knows his history. He knows about colonization. He knew about the Pilgrims. He knows about slavery. He knows about Jim Crow laws. And he wanted it to stay that way.
Exactly, right? Because even as we see people who like to, what do they call them? Lady antebellum parties or whatever. I'm like, you are aware of what you're celebrating, right? It was like, oh, we want the old South to rise again. What part of it exactly do you want to combat? The part where Black people were slaves?
It's the same
like
thing.
Which part?
America great again. Which America? What part of America do you want to great again?
Right? Like and that's the thing. It's like, oh, tying back to the DEI and tying back to the abuse, right? It's folks like to gaslight people and make them think like they're the crazy ones. When you peep that, like, oh, this is problematic. But then those folks who are perpetuating it are like, well, that's not exactly, that. No, I don't see like that. It's your misperception of the matter.
Right.
But I'm like, and I'm like, and we understand that these are people who have taken, or that diversity training, right? And they're like, oh, we were ahead of the curve. Like, we've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, that's just so problematic.
It's diversity and inclusion is such a tricky topic. It is such a tricky topic because all of us have our biases.
Thank you. Say it.
All of us. Now,
myself included.
Self-included, we all have our biases. Now, not all of us have the same power.
Yes.
Our biases can be weaponized. It's people in power who can weaponize their biases, and their biases land up hurting and killing other people. That's where the line of the problem starts. All of us have biases.
Yes.
If I'm not in a position of power, and I'm not in a position to hurt you, my bias is,
it's irrelevant.
You don't care.
It's just you.
I can be as racist as I want. As long as I'm not hurting you, you don't care.
And okay, I will say that's pretty much my understanding of like how I look at life. I'm like, as long as you can hate me, if that's your choice of the day, kudos to you. But if you and if you don't have any power to do anything about it, for me, I'm like, I am not bothered. It is when you mobilize and like use that power to then disenfranchise somebody like me or somebody who looks like me for no other reason other than the fact that you just happen to have this feeling towards that person or this ideology towards that person or that set group of people, whether we're talking about, folks who don't like women or the folks who don't like, people who happen to be like overweight or not look like whatever society says it's supposed to look like. You know, if you don't like Black people, if you don't like Asians, if you don't like brown people, like if you don't like indigenous people, if you like, and you end up weaponizing that feeling, like, and creating systems of oppression, right? And that's the thing, like, even when we begin to then dismantle these systems, and you tell people, I am trying to dismantle this oppressive system, and they're like, but I don't hate you, I treat you very nicely.
What bothers me, what pushes my buttons, is when they say, I don't see color, I'm not racist. I'm like, if you say that you don't see color, what you're basically saying is you don't see us.
Right?
You don't see us. We don't exist. You're dehumanizing us.
You refuse to see the part of the very things. You refuse to see my lived experience. And exactly. So no matter how many times I'll try to explain it to you, you will refuse to see it because you have convinced yourself that you don't see it. And for me, actually, I say very plainly, I'm like, so which colors don't you see? Because I'm like, can you see that, like, you know, whatever there's differences in this outfit, you know, there's a difference in color between your outfit versus mine. So do you not see that color variation? Or which colors exactly are you blind to? To me, I typically, I'm like, and if you're actually colorblind, I'm like, that's called a medical condition, and there's ways to fix that. We can help you, right? Dr. Singh could probably point you in the right direction to help you with that. I may not be able to. I'll have to be like, go see Dr. Singh. She could help you. I
don't have a license to practice medicine in the US. Meet me back in India.
I know, right? Like, but at the very least, you can be like, okay, then that's definitely a medical condition. Go get some help, right? Because I can't really even like direct somebody. I'm like, I don't know. Like, do you not see color? All right, cool. Go see a professional, right?
Right. So the last link that I just shared, I believe that one is for the Guatemala trial.
Yeah.
Guatemala study. So this was, again, and I'm sharing these links in case people want to dive in deeper. So basically, the Guatemala study was conducted by the U.S. Public Health Services.
Yes.
And it was syphilis, where they injected prisoners and mental health patients with syphilis without their informed consent. They even treated some prostitutes. So they inoculated them with syphilis. It's not like they took patients who had syphilis. They actually put syphilis into them. They infected them, and they studied them without their informed consent. And this was 1946, 1948. And again, you know, some may think, oh, that was long ago, and all that doesn't happen today.
Oh.
Unfortunately, it's not that long ago. We've just seen over the last 4 or 5 years that we took such huge steps backwards.
Right.
Our country, in its mindset, many people went back over 50 years within the last 4 years. So going back 50, 60 years in time is really not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So if we are not mindful, we don't keep our guard up, these things that happened back in the 1940s and 50s can happen today, can happen tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
If we don't keep proactively working and moving forward.
Right? Yeah. Yes, which is why, you know, even when we hear people say, but I'm not racist, I'm not this, I'm like, it's not enough to just simply not be that and be passive about it. It's about being intentional about moving the needle, like, even further beyond just being lukewarm at best.
Right. Because if you look into history has taught us these lessons many times. And if we are not mindful, history will repeat itself.
Absolutely. And as we've seen, like, time and time again, literally, like, the same cycle. And to me, I'm like, and then you said this was like less than 50 years ago.
Well, it's 1948, so a little over 70 years ago.
Yes, yes, right? Yeah, so sorry, it was in the 50s, my error, not 50 years. It was in the 50s, well, almost the 50s. And so for me, it's cyclical.
It is cyclical. It's always, when you're doing well socioeconomically, that's the time you forget. We've not had a war for a while. A lot of people have, you know, we've seen socioeconomic boom. So we forget. And we think, oh, now we live in, you know, the golden era or whatever. And that's when you let your guards down. And that's when we go backwards. Right?
Wow.
A lot of people, when we were talking about, the war that's going on in the Middle East and everything, and
Mhm.
ask the people who've survived wars, ask our veterans,
Yeah.
and ask people who've been to Desert Storm. They don't want war.
Anybody, and to me, I'm like, anybody with a sense of real humanity and understanding. I'm like, to me, I was like, war is never really the answer. If you really want real solutions, I would never vote for that.
Exactly, because in Indian history, you go back 1,000 years, Emperor Ashoka,
Mm.
he was the emperor. He won every war he fought. He won. But at the end of each war, when he walked through the battlefield, all he saw was dead bodies.
Right?
And he's like, what's the point?
Nobody really wins.
What's the point of winning this war? All, so many of my soldiers and the other people's soldiers are dead. They are dead.
It's not
Their
a win.
families are traumatized. They've lost sons and brothers and fathers and husbands.
Yeah.
This is a pile of dead bodies on my battlefield. What's the point of winning this war? I don't feel like I won anything when I see this pile of dead bodies. And so he gave up. After becoming an emperor, after winning all of these wars, he ultimately gave up and took the life of a hermit. So we have these examples in history, that at the end of the day, human life should be valued the most. The other day I was having, and I think I mentioned this in our previous one, a discussion with someone on LinkedIn about the shutdown and stuff, talking about how it's impacted us economically and stuff. And that person made a smart remark saying, you must have gotten a raise or something during the pandemic. That's why you're happy about working from home. I'm like, no, my business is shut down. My nonprofit's not doing anything. My summer courses got canceled. So no, all my sources of income disappeared overnight when we went into shutdown.
Tell them.
But I'm still okay with it because, number one, I'm healthy. My children are healthy.
Right.
So the ones who stay alive at least get a fighting chance to thrive at the end of it.
No, seriously.
Economy comes, economy goes. Money comes, money goes. Every time the economy has tanked, it has come back. If you're alive, you live to see another day. You live to see the economy come back.
Yes.
But the ones who died, they didn't take their millions with them.
Oh, say it.
We come naked, we leave naked.
That's the word for y'all tonight.
You don't take your real estate with you. The
You
only
can try.
real estate you take with you is that 6 foot if you get buried.
That's it.
Yeah, we get cremated. We don't even take that 6 foot space.
Right? I'm like, listen, just put me back in this earth. Let me become revegetation up here.
Right? And people who work, if you ask people, why do you work? Why do you have a job? Because you want to provide for your family. You want to provide the roof over the head. You want to put food over the table. You want to do it for your family. Some people want to earn passive sources of income. Why do you want a passive source of income? Why do you want money without actually going out to work for it? Because they'll say, because I want to spend more time with my family. I want to go on vacation. But now you're being asked to spend time with your family and you're still complaining.
I know, right? Like that. I do not understand that. I'm like, isn't this what we all wanted? Like, it was like we wanted more time for peace, to like we get rejuvenated, to get centered back again. And we even saw that people finally really began to care about the things that really matter. People finally had time to like stop and see the world for what it is and realize, oh, we have to do better. We have to be better. And we can, though. We can. Well, as long as we're still here, we can.
And that's what I've been saying it right from the beginning. The ones who stay alive get a chance to thrive.
Yeah,
but this whole thing is about at least stay alive. Yourself, your loved one, and people around you. This is all. It's as simple as that.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love the fact that you always end on a high note, honestly. For me, I'm just like, oh, yes. And so, I know we got to go. But before we do, this is a quick reminder, right? Go to HARP. That's www.harpnow.org. There's 2 things I want y'all to do. Go fill out the survey, once for harassment and assault, once for police brutality. And if you have experienced or witnessed harassment or assault, HARP it. We have 1 button for HARP it for the police brutality, HARP it for harassment and assault. And with that, again, family, thank you for your time today. Dr. Singh, thank you for educating us. I will include the links in the post. And again, Dr. Singh, please comment on somewhere in there so people can get
I'll post all the links with what each link is for, and then I'll share them on all the different sites that I can. You share them on all the different sites you can.
I can rock with that. See, I'm telling you, we're out here to educate you, increase awareness. We're all about that work. So until next time, take care of yourselves, be blessed, and we'll see you on the next Let's Harp About It.
Get vaccinated and vote.
Yeah, yes, please.